Hello, Heathens. Welcome to the Blótcast, Season 2, Episode 2. Last time we talked about the beginning of spring and the festivities that surrounds that. But today I am going to fully dedicate myself to the main theme of this season: gods, their stories, and their names. Today we are going to talk about the most significant god of northern mythology. He's the pivotal point of most stories, legends, and sagas. He's the god of death, a god of war, a god of wisdom, the god of runes, a god of poetry, the lord of frenzy, and he's known under at least 100 names. So, let's talk about this god, shall we? Of course, I'm talking about Odin, the All-Father and superior god of Norse mythology. Let us start with the name, Odin. The modern spelling derives from the Old Norse Odin, meaning something like Lord of Frenzy. Ödr or Odr is often translated as inspired, fury, and frantic, which refers to the concept of divine mental activity. Divine mental activity that is needed to pursue his goals of knowledge and wisdom. But as we all know, that in Norse mythology formed itself in Central Europe and was later brought up north. So there is a theory that this name ultimately developed from the Proto-Germanic word vodanats or vodats, meaning again rage, manic inspiration, possession, mad or furious, where the German or Central European name for Odin derives from, which is Wodan or Wotan. So we have the Proto-Germanic source word, which is Vodanas. Vodanas was then, through the Celtic and Germanic tribes, changed to the name of a god of Wodan or Wotan. And this belief system then arrived up north, where we then dropped the W from Wodan and ended with Odan or Odin. And let's dabble a bit more talk about a bit more about Vodanas. Vodanas again can be traced back again to Proto-Indo-European, to the word vet or vetos, which mean again possession, raging or excited or inspired. I know, there was a lot of definition here, but let us linger here just for one more moment, because there is again a similar word in Proto-Celtic, vetis, again with the same meaning. And there are even words in Old Norse and Old English meaning poetry or song, which are rooted in the Proto-Germanic, Proto-Celtic source of this word. So a lot of possession, manic drive, and even inspiring things like poetry or song. Another interesting perspective about the name Odin is rarely talked about, because in chapter 35 in the Prosa Edda book Gylfaginning, it is said that the goddess Freyja was once married to someone named Odr or Od, which seems to be a totally different entity than Odin. At least in the texts it is described like that. But as we know now that the name Odin derives from Odr in some cases, and this perspective shares a new light on the relationship between Freyja and Odin, which are the leaders of the Einherjar, the fallen heroes that drink and feast in Valhalla, and it is often indicated that their relationship is more intimate than it seems. And another idea that comes to mind is that Odin was one of the three gods that gave life to humankind. And Odr or Od is often translated as breath or breath of life. There is a German synonym for breath that is actually called Odem with an M at the end. So maybe at one point in time, in an older cult form of Odin, was actually in a relationship with Freyja and breathed life into us humans. But I'm getting ahead of myself in theories, but this always happens when I research things, that things spring to mind, and I just need to share them with you. So let's talk about the origin. So where does Odin originates from? We talked about the scientific linguistic perspective here, but what does the literature say, or the sagas, the stories? Let's start with his father, and you read again from the Prose Edda the Gylfaginning. We're gonna read a little story about his grandfather and how his father came to be. So, we read. She licked the ice blocks, which were salty, and the first day that she licked the blocks, there came forth from the blocks in the evening a man's hair. The second day a man's head, the third day the whole man was there. He is named Buri. It was fair of feature, great and mighty. He begat a son called Bor. What exactly have you read there? She in this text is Aud-Umla, the first beast that ever lived. It is said that she was some kind of primeval cow. She nourished the giant Ymir, the father of all giant and the first human being or bipedal being that ever walked, and she nourished him with her milk that always flowed out of her udders. At this time of the creation epos of Norse mythology, there was just two worlds, Muspelheim and Niflheim. And in the cold, vast desert of Niflheim, this cow found stones under the ice. They were salty, so she licked them to nourish herself. And from one of those stones, a man came about, the grandfather of Odin, Buri, the father of all gods, at least the Aesir gods. And he became the father of a son through unknown means called Bor, the father of Odin. Bor can be translated in two ways, either from Old Icelandic word Bur, meaning son or son, like the son and the father, or the word Bor, which refers to drill or an auger. In German, it is basically the same word. A bohrer is a tool to drill holes in a wall or wood, which is a cheeky hint from myself to his wife, which we're going to talk about now. Because his wife, so the mother of Odin, was a giantess, so a Jötun, called Bestla. This name is very old and is not certain where it's originated from. Attentional translations reach from wife to bark, so the outer shell of a tree. Another possible translation could be derived from Proto-Germanic bastilon, meaning bark giver, or Old Norse bastr, meaning the inner bark of a tree. So it's only natural for her to find a husband that could drill her bark, when you know what I mean. And this love couple had 3 sons, Vile, Ve, and Odin. I won't bore you with the translation attempts of these two, but note here that sometimes in some literatures, these 2 brothers have different names. Vili is also called Hönir, and Ve is sometimes called Loder. This will get important when we talk about another significant god of northern mythology, but another episode. Let's talk about Odin's associations. Odin is associated with a lot of symbols, animals, relics, weapons, gods, of course, and other things. And this is probably due to the fusion of multiple gods into this early medieval high god of Norse mythology. Let's talk about the most significant ones here. First and foremost, animals. The most known are, of course, his ravens, Hunin, Old Norse for thought, and Munin, Old Norse for memory or mind. It is told that these 2 ravens leave the shoulders of their master in the morning and come back in the afternoon to tell him about the news of all the 9 worlds. There is another pair of animals that are associated with Odin, and they are his 2 wolves, Geri, meaning the greedy one, deriving actually from Proto-Germanic Geratz, and his brother Freki, meaning the gluttonous or the audacious, again from Proto-Germanic Frikas. Another animal that needs to be mentioned here is his loyal steed Sleipnir, which is a child of Loki. Loki is actually the mother of Sleipnir. And Sleipnir means in Old Norse slippery or slippy or the slipperer. This steed, as most of you know, has 8 legs and is the fastest horse in all the 9 realms. Let's talk about relics. The most significant item that he possesses is his spear Gungnir, again from Old Norse, the swaying one, possibly related to the Danish verb Gungur, meaning to tremble. So it also can be translated as the trembling one. It is a weapon, a spear, that was forged in the world of the dwarves by the master smith Dvalin from the folk of Ivaldi. This spear is thrown with purpose. This spear, if thrown with purpose, would never miss its target. Quite handy. The last item that I want to talk about is his ring called Draupnir. From Old Norse to drip, so the dripper. Again fashioned by dwarves. This time the two master smiths, brothers, Sindri and Brok, or Brokker. The ring has the ability to multiply itself. Every night, 8 new rings drip from it. And the symbol of Odin is called the Valknut. In English, that would be translated to the walnut, which is composed of 3 triangles that are overlaid, which is the symbol of the 9 worlds. So we have 3 triangles, so 3 points. And between these points, these are the paths that Odin can travel between the worlds. But we talked about his father and how he came about. So now let's talk about the first significant act that Odin has done. So now we know about his origin and about his association, but let us linger a bit more in the beginning. So how did the world look when Odin was born? Let's do that first. The world was still just 2 worlds, one of fire and one of ice, with a gaping hole in the middle. And this place got more and more crowded with trolls and giants, the descendant from Ymir, and multiplied and reached a boiling point. The race of gods became more and more worried by the day, so they thought about a plan to kill Ymir and his brood in one fell swoop. One day, they all attacked at once, all the descendants of Buri. In the Prose Edda, only 3 gods attacked actually Ymir and killed Ymir. It was Odin, Vili, and Ve. Just a side note here. And so they murdered the first being that ever lived. And you need to understand that the proportions of Ymir were in any way of the word gigantic. He was so large that the wounds that he received from the gods and the blood that was gushing out of them created such a giant wave that all the giants and trolls were swept away and pulled into the big void. I think only 1 or 2 giants survived this catastrophe. But this is not their story. Yes, a god of war is here in my script. So, as I said, Odin has many different aspects to him. And this is the first occasion that we see a violent part in the Aesir gods. The giants seem to be peaceful as giants can be, and there were no animosity from their side against the gods. The gods were just worried because they were heavily outnumbered. So they started a war that would bring the giants almost to the brink of extinction. And in the forefront of that altercation was Odin and his brothers. So we see that Odin has, in his beginnings, a war-oriented side. And we see this in many other cultures, that the main god, or the later main god, was once a god of war. Same in Christianity, Islam, and even the same thing for the Celtic and Germanic tribes. For most of them, war was a focal point in their life. It's only natural to pray to a strong god that would tip the outcome of battle in their favor. In the Germanic and Celtic equivalent to Odin, at this point of time would be Tivats or Teutates. And this entity can be found in Norse mythology as well as the brave and justice, the god of justice, Tyr. Right, god of war. Now, creation of the 9 worlds. After this apocalypse of the giants, the gods, especially the 3 brothers, started creating and forming the worlds. And the beings that should inhabitate them. The only issue was they were still just fire and ice, so no sturdy material to create something, right? Well, there was something new, the corpse of the giant Ymir. That was obviously just perfect to crafting and creating. We read from the Prose Edda of Snorri Sturluson, The Death of Ymir. Odin, Vili, and Ve killed the giant Ymir. When Ymir fell, there issued from his wound such a flood of blood that all the frost ogres were downed except for the giant Bergelmir, who escaped with his wife by climbing into a lure. From them spring the families of frost ogres. Ogres? The word is oddly written. Anyway, earth, trees, and mountains. The son of Bor then carried Ymir to the middle of Ginnungagap and made the world from him. From his blood they made the sea and the lakes, from his flesh the earth, from his hair the trees, from his bones the mountains. They made rocks and pebbles from his teeth and jaws, and those bones that were broken. The dwarves. Maggots appeared in Ymir's flesh and came to life. By the decree of the gods they acquired human understanding and the appearance of men, although they lived in the earth and in the rocks. Sky, clouds, and stars. From Ymir's skull the sons of Bor made the sky and set it over the earth with his 4 sides. Under each corner they put a dwarf, whose names are East, West, North, and South, or Eastir, Vestir, Nordir, and Sudir? Sudir it is. The sons of Bor flung Ymir's brain into the air and they became the clouds. And then they took the sparks and burning embers that were flying about after they had been blown out of Muspel and placed them in the midst of Ginnungagap to give light to heaven above and earth beneath. To the stars they gave appointed places and paths. The earth was surrounded by a deep sea. The sons of Bor gave lands near the sea to the families of the giants for their settlements. Midgard. To protect themselves from the hostile giants, the sons of Bor built for themselves an inland stronghold using Ymir's eyebrows. The stronghold they named Midgard. Ask and Embla. While walking along the seashore, the sons of Bor found 2 trees, and from them they created a man and a woman. Odin gave the man and the woman spirit and life. Vili gave them understanding and the power of movement. Ve gave them clothing and names. The man was named Ask or Ash, and the woman was called Embla or Elm. From Ask and Embla have sprung the race of men who lived in Midgard. Asgard. In the middle of the world, the sons of Bor built for themselves a stronghold named Asgard, called Troy by later generations. The gods and their kindred lived in Asgard, and many memorable events have happened there. In Asgard was a great hall named Hlitskjalf. Odin sat there on his high seat. From there he could look out over the whole world and see what everyone was doing. He understood everything that he saw. God of creation. So we read now from the Prose Edda, and here we see Odin as an other aspect, not a war aspect again. And we see him as a god of creation, a god that doesn't destroy, a ruler that builds and is interested in his creation. And this is again not a picture that is foreign by any means. After the war and after the possible danger is eradicated, there is time to build up, to rebuild, and to think about the future. And Odin... No, getting a call. And Odin fits as a god perfectly in this picture. So from a war god to a creation god. Yggdrasil. Now Odin could claim his throne and he could be happy about the creation which he and his brothers had done, but he wasn't. There were still so many things that he did not understand and that bothered him. He dedicated himself to learn about the world and that he created to take different forms to experience the different worlds. As a human, he was a wanderer. He could change into an animal and much more. But how did he travel between the realms? Well, we know how, but we don't really know where it comes from. I talked about the world tree Yggdrasil. There are not many scripts that talk about its creation. Maybe it was always there, and the realms were connected afterwards to it, or the 9 worlds. One text tells the story that Yggdrasil came out of the Ginnungagap, the Great Void, like Ymir. This is certainly an explanation, but to accept this idea, you need to throw out the idea of a terrestrial tree. Because it is said that Yggdrasil has 3 roots at 3 wells, one in Niflheim, one in Jotunheim, and one in Asgard. We read out of the Völuspá. An ash I know there stands, Yggdrasil is its name, a tall tree showered within shining loam. From there come the dews that drop in the valleys. It stands forever green over Udr's well, or Urd's well. And this Urd is one of the 3 divine women that watered the tree in Asgard every morning, called the Norns. These are 3 sisters with immense power over destiny of all beings, even the gods. But our question is still not answered. How can Yggdrasil grow out of the void but has its roots in the 9 worlds? And especially in worlds that weren't created or at the time. You see, I think it's a metaphor, it's a concept of something higher that we mortals try to wrap our heads around. It is a metaphor of a trans-dimensional connection between all realms through that tree. So both assumptions could be true. It grew out of the great void and was always there. But one thing that I can answer for certain is what Yggdrasil actually means. The most common translation is Odin's horse, because Ygg is a name that is given to Odin and Drasil just means horse. So now we know how Odin can travel between the 9 realms. Now we talk about another story, the Well of Knowledge, and as an aspect of Odin where he's the god of wisdom. Because on his path to seek knowledge, he heard about a being that everybody claimed was the wisest in all worlds, and that it lived at one of the wells of the World Tree in Jotunheim by all accounts. Odin was driven to go there for 2 reasons. The first one was, of course, that he worries about Yggdrasil deeply, so he needed to make sure that one of the roots wasn't in danger in Jotunheim. But the other reason was quite personal. There is an entity that everybody claims is the wisest in the worlds, and it's not him, and that bothered him. And now starts a story that I would like to share with you. I know it will take some time to read it out in the most sensual way possible, but I hope you enjoy the tale of Mimir and Odin. One note beforehand, Odin is disguised in the story as an old wanderer, a human old wanderer. So we begin to read from the book The Wild Gods. When you're interested, I can give you the full name and the author. But I just love this book. It's a story of the creation and all the sagas, but it has a bit of a timeline, so it's easier to digest. We start. He ventured far into the land of giants and into Jotunheim, for he had heard that there lived one who was said to be the wisest of all creatures. This troll was named Mimir. He was a hermit who kept away from the other giants, and the path to his dwelling was fraught with dangers. What did such obstacles matter to Odin? He wanted to know where Mimir got his wisdom from, and when he visited him, he saw the troll drinking from a spring. That was Mimir's secret, for the water from this well made anyone who drank from it a little wiser each time. I too wish to drink from your spring, said Odin. Anyone could come here, replied Mimir. Who are you anyway, and who invited you? I'm just an ordinary wanderer, said Odin, who did not want everybody to know who he was. This spring is not for every vagabond, exclaimed Mimir. The only one who may drink from it is me. Odin first tried with promises, but Mimir said, What could a fellow like you promise me that I don't already have? And when Odin resorted to threats, he laughed at him. It must be known at the time, Odin was still a very young god, lacking in self-confidence. He was not entirely sure of his omnipotence, and he did not feel that he was the wisest. Perhaps Mimir has seen through him, he thought, and... Is he making fun of me? But that was not the case, for suddenly Mimir demanded, "Give me one of your eyes." Odin could not believe his ears. "Hand it over," the troll exclaimed. "Then you may drink from my spring as much as you wish." However, Odin was not deterred by Mimir's demand, for never before had anyone in heaven or on earth been so eager for wisdom and knowledge. Without a moment's hesitation, the stranger plucked out an eye, lay down by the spring, and drank. Then it dawned on Mimir, and he realized who he was dealing with. He was the wisest among the giants. This was no ordinary tramp, this was a god. And Mimir decided to join Odin to become his friend and advisor. Mimir's spring was located beneath a mighty root. "Why don't you cut off the root?" asked Odin. "Then it would be more convenient to drink from it." "What are you thinking? Do you not know that this is no ordinary tree from which the spring draws its water? It is the world tree Yggdrasil, which has 3 roots. One here, where you now sit, the second in Niflheim, far in the northern mist, and the third there where I come from," said Odin, "by all the goddesses in Asgard. Then you must understand that we must not tamper with the roots of this tree, for it is sacred, and woe betide us all if anyone does it harm. Yes, my friend, to understand the world, one must know about Yggdrasil." Odin took this to heart, and when he came back home, he laid down on the great meadow and looked up. He saw that the world tree resembled a pillar on which the sky rested, but he also noted that in its crown and under its branches lived all kinds of creatures. The bees lived off the honeydew that dripped from its leaves. They were harmless, but not so the 4 deers that leapt among the strong branches, dripping the leaves and gnawing on the fresh roots. In the top of Yggdrasil nested a wise eagle, and between its eyes perched a hawk. And that's not all. Odin also heard about the great serpent Nidhogg, who resides in distant Niflheim, at one of the 3 springs. It had settled right at the root, gnawing, and who knows how long the ash can withstand this. So Odin pondered. What happens if the tree rots, or if someone fells it, he wondered. Yet he also hesitated to change what he did not understand or to destroy what he did not like. Rather, he wanted to try to protect and cherish what seemed good and dear to him. Above all, he had to take care of his own spring, which sprang forth in the middle of Asgard. Its fresh waters feeds a pond, in which 2 swans swim, and 3 mighty women called the Norns guard it, Urdr, Verdandi, and Skuld, who determine the good and the bad. So Odin's first request was for the Norns to water the root plentifully every day, so that the great ash would not rot. Moreover, he ordered to honor Yggdrasil, that the Aesir from then on should hold their council. Who is Mimir? As we know now, Mimir is a troll and one of the Jotuns, so a frost troll. And it's a test. No, and he's the wisest of all creatures. His name presents difficulties for historical linguists. However, there are 2 major translation attempts. The first one would be from Proto-Indo-European verb smer or mer, meaning to think, recall, reflect, or worry. In ancient Greek, it would be mermairo. Also, descendants from this verb, mermairo is also a descendant from the root word and has the same meaning. Another possible translation is that this name or the root of this name is related to modern English, word, the English word memory. So the scholar Rudolf Simek renders the name as meaning the rememberer or the wise one. So we know now that Mimir joins Odin on his journeys, and some sources even describe him as one of the Aesir later, and the god of wisdom. And this is a common practice in Asgard. Not all gods that reside there are from Aesir descent. We have gods like Freyja, Frey, Njordr, all Vanir gods, or Loki, who is a giant himself. And Mimir takes a significant part in later stories of the Edda, but I would be getting too far ahead of myself, so let's focus on Odin here in this story. The god of wisdom. In this story, we see yet again another aspect of Odin. He seems to be very human in this journey to his wisdom and omnipotence. He lacks of self-confidence and fears that people would see through his facade or disguise. But in his pursuit of wisdom, at this moment, he doesn't hesitate. Not 1 second to sacrifice everything for his dream. And this is something everyone can learn from him. To pursue your dreams and goals, even in the fear and panic of the moment. Be like Odin. And I'm looking at the time. I think with that story, I need to take a break. I have so much more in my script to so many stories about Odin, and it would just take too long, I think. So this will be a 2-part episode. But you won't have to wait too long for the next episode, because I will upload it next week, because the script is already done. And it's necessary because after the second episode will be released in the week after, there is again one of the high festivals, Ostara, the ancient origin of modern Easter. And of course, I will talk about that in length as well. So, a lot of Blótcast for you in March. At least 3 episodes for now. And after Ostara, we will continue our journey through the Norse mythology, and I will talk about one of the Aesir gods, or one... Yeah, let's see who I'm going to talk about. There's a lot to choose for me here. With that, I hope you all liked the format of me talking about in-depth about the gods, and there are many, many more to talk about. I think Odin was the right choice to kick it all off, and I would like to know if you have a relationship to him or any other god, and of course I hope you don't mind me reading some of the related sources to you, because I very much enjoy it. So please let me know what you think about the new episode, either through Instagram, YouTube, or via mail at the.blotcast@gmail.com. And as always, know that you are loved, you're able to love, because you are love. See you in the next one.